So good afternoon everyone, we're at the second think tank of the afternoon, the Music Entrepreneurship think tank. We have a pretty awesome panel here of music, talented performers and from their industry. So our host for this session will be Vinni Crea, coordinator of the panel. He's from Music Artist Streams from the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts. We also have Dan White from Blue Child Collective, Kate Hindle, Local Talent, Clive Hodson, Pitch Perfect Publishing, and Joe Powell he's a freelance musician, performer, composer and educator. So I'll now hand it over to Vinni for this session.
Thank you very much for that, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Collie Music Think Tank. It's nice to have you here with us. So first of all, we are going to be telling you a little bit about ourselves. So here we go, we'll sort of pump our story up for you. So I first started playing drums in high school many moons ago. And that was an amazing experience in a high school band. That led me on to playing in the local rock bands and basically learning about what it was to be a local musician. So we had to practice our instrument and learn some songs and rehearse, try to get good enough to do some gigs for some people. And most of the first gigs you have your family around and they always not always the truth, but it certainly gives us some inspiration to start, so we all try to encourage people to have that. And those things were very important, so we soon realised how important it was to listen to other music and try to learn what it was important in those styles, and try to play them and perform them with a minimal degree of expertise. So I kind of joined my first main band when I was about 17. We started touring around Australia and that was really wonderful. And I thought I was a rock star and it was just wonderful to be able to turn up at different towns and play and people would come and see you. And we had the thrill of performing and it was just such a wonderful time, and we were young and learning all about the industry. And I was fortunate enough to play on some of the major music shows of the day like Countdown, Hey-Eights, Saturday, Sounds Unlimited and things like that. So they were also really magical experiences for me. And as I said, I was only about 17 or 18 years old and living in Melbourne and Sydney. And as fate would have it, I met this wonderful young lady and decided that I'd get married. And then I had to kind of work out if I was going to be able to put all my time into music or whether I wanted to have a family life, and the family life seemed pretty appealing, and certainly with such a wonderful person that I had met to be my partner. So from there, I continued to play, and I was in the Sydney music scene, which was really fantastic, and I was lucky to work with some incredible bands and some amazing producers. So I worked with Collie and Mental as Anything and In Excess and those sorts of bands. So it was really amazing to see them in the studio, and I was signed to Festival Records myself, and we had Don Walker, who was the keyboard player for Cultures, an amazing songwriter and producer. So I had amazing people around me, most incredible experiences, so I was very, very lucky. Anyway, we did get married and I decided that I would be responsible. And we started to have a family, and I thought, well, how am I going to work out my music life and my personal life? So that was quite a challenge. And I think it's important for us all, when we're starting in the industry, to think about these things, because it's hard to know what to give up, and a lot of us give a lot of things up for music, that's for sure. Most of us on this panel have dedicated ourselves in one way or another and had to give up things. But I came back to Perth because I was going to be responsible and buy a house and do the right thing for the family. And I was very lucky. I landed an incredible gig at Gobble's nightclub, which some of your parents or grandparents might tell you about. And it was a house band gig, so fantastic gig. I was able to be the one band for 8 years and back all of the artists that came to WA at that stage. So I was able to work with incredible people like Andrew Anderson and John English and Mark Hunter and Mark Gable from the Choir Boys and Eric Wiedemann and Ross Wilson, some incredible artists. It was a fantastic experience, and it was really good to be able to say that I had played with them, and I learnt so much about the industry at that stage. And what an incredible gig, 8 years, 3 nights a week. So very, very lucky to have done that. And after that, I just joined some local bands. We had another child, and I realised that I wanted to just kind of blend music and my personal life and try to continue on for the rest of my life doing those things, which is really incredible. And I found a way to do that. So I'm one of the lucky people that's always been able to just be a musician and also have a family and really achieve the things that I wanted to achieve when I was younger, a teenager. I did go on to study at WAPA, and I graduated there in 1996, and I began teaching there the year after 97. I've been there ever since. And Kate, Joe have been students of mine there, and Joe now works there as one of the lecturers, so it's wonderful to see some of our influences help them, and Kate's an amazing artist, so we're very proud of some of the things that we've been involved with at WAPA, that's for sure. In my time, I was very lucky to have, because of the people that I had worked with, I was able to score and secure some international endorsements with Sonar drums and Sabian cymbals, Vader drumsticks. Those people really helped to promote me and what I was doing. They supported me an amazing amount as well, so I'm definitely one of the lucky guys, that's for sure. Anyway, so I've been at WAPA for all that time, and in 2011 I developed a course called the Music Artist course, which is an amazing course, an original music course. It's the first time at university that we've been focusing on original music rather than just cover songs and cover music. And that's been a really incredible experience. The Music Artist course has given people that might not necessarily have the academic knowledge or the theoretical knowledge that you normally would require to enter university. So we're very fortunate that we can choose people that have got creative sparks. So it's a wonderful thing. At WAPA we try to teach important skills such as reliability, consistency, the importance of knowledge and communication, and to strive to be a better musician and performer. So they're the things that we really believe in, and you'll be able to see with all of the panellists, I'm sure, especially with Kate and Joe. And that's kind of a bit of a general story about myself. I definitely feel that I'm one of the lucky people who have been able to combine music in my life and to continue to do it for my whole life. And when I decided to go to university, that was one of the decisions that I had made, was that I wanted to play until I was an old man. Some people call me an old man already, but even older than I am now. And so I wanted to get the knowledge so that I could expand from what I had done, not just play blues and rock and roll and pop music. And I got some more knowledge, and I'm still playing, so I'm very grateful for that. This afternoon, we're hoping to talk about several topics that may be interesting for someone that's just starting in the industry, and even for some of us that might be in the industry already. So yes, hopefully we're going to talk about some of those things and have some advice for people that are just starting out. But before that, we'll pass you on to some of the other members in the panel. They can tell you a little bit about their story, and perhaps you'd like to take on from there, Dan.
Sounds good. Cheers, Vinny. How you going, guys? My name's Dan White. I live in Margaret River in Narrabeen. And yeah, I guess I've been doing this since, playing music since I was a little grommet. Started playing guitar about 9 and got stuck right into it, playing fortnightly shows from the age of 11 and haven't played any less than that since. Kind of cut my teeth playing in the blues band in Freo for about 6 years doing that fortnightly show. Learning how to set up a PA and like how to talk to an audience and count tips and stuff like that. And then I guess I joined a whole bunch of bands over the years and done a bunch of Australian runs. We've gone further afield with some of them, over to Europe and over to NZ a couple of times. And I've been on my latest project, Blue Child Collective, which is a 6-piece horn section, keys, bass, drums, and my partner MJ, for about 4 years now. And that's all original stuff. We've got a new album coming out, our 4th in about 2 weeks. And they'll take us around the country again. So I guess that project's really helped me become more involved in the managerial sense, because I write and record everything and yeah, book all the shows. Basically, it's a self-managed project. So I mean, for my future, I'm looking to further that knowledge in programs like the Seed Fund, for example. But at the same time, it's getting to the point where I'm building a team around myself, so I've got a good PR guy on board, and we're starting to take those next steps. But on the side, I also have a lot to do with the Southwest music development. So from my base in Margaret River, there's a group called the Creative Corner. It's not just music, it's cross art forms, so photography and videography, media, etc., etc. Richard Todd, who you just saw before, is involved with that also, as are many of the greatest artists in the Southwest, because it's a bit of a hub. Anyway, as part of that, I've been curating the music for Emergence Creative Festival for the last few years, and we're starting up a new festival in the Southwest in October next year. Yeah, I guess that kind of delves into the whole event management kind of side of stuff. But it's good fun and a nice way to stay involved in the music industry and meeting new people and doing things like this, because it's only a good thing. I guess they all help the same end destination, which is to play music or be involved in some respect.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. What about you, Clive? You've got a story for us?
I have a story. In 1960, a rather portly gentleman came to my school, which is the East Victoria Park School, and said, I want to start a school band. And the headmaster, fortunately, was very sympathetic to that. He liked music. And I wanted to get out of what was called manual training at the time, which is making leather wallets and doing that sort of thing, and dyeing leather. I'm going, this has got to be something else. This portly gentleman, his name was Mr. Ma, never knew his first name. He looked at me, and I was about the size of an ornament that you have on the front of a car. And he said, yeah, I think cornet's for you. See if you can get a note out of this. So I pursed my lips and spat into this cornet, and I got a squeak, and he went, you're in the band. This happened more than once in my life. That was actually Western Australia's first school band, was the East Victoria Park School Band. I was very proud to be there. As a matter of fact, there's some quite famous people that have come out of that. Lindsay Wells is one of Western Australia's probably finest blues guitarists. He was a trombone player in that band at the same time. He's the same age as me. Margaret Fenn, who became a champion cornet player and a global player. Simon Dehaan is probably one of the foremost trombone players and composers, in fact, in Australia now. He was a trombone player in that band. So a lot of people came out of there doing very, very well. Moving on, I had my first band at 9. They were called the Orbiteers. That was pretty cool at the time. Sputniks and Orbiteers, that's a Russian thing. Anyway, won't go into that. We used to play, we had a certificate from the Child Welfare Department, and so we could play in pubs, and we'd go around and play. It was a 3-piece band. I played trumpet, chest, bass, and sang, and we had a guitarist and a drummer. We did that for a while, and then a mate of mine who I was having lessons with, Brendan Darby, who's now a well-known artist and an Archibald finalist, who also a fine trumpet player, we decided that we would form a band together called the Young Brass, and we had quite a lot of success in Western Australia. We appeared on Showcase. We won a lot of competitions, actually playing Tier 1 of brass music, as opposed to a lot of the players at the time, the indie players that were playing really cool music. And we'd come along, and because we were like this big and playing Tier 1 of brass, they went, oh, look at that. Yes, we'll give them the prize. And of course, we didn't make any difference at all. Then that morphed into a band called Saab, which is brass backwards. We were a 3-piece horn section thing, and we toured back Paul McCartney, etc. from that, and won Battle of the Bands. Hoadley's Battle of the Bands, which nobody know it. I don't think even Hoadley's is even known of. But that was exciting times. What happened then was I was given an opportunity to move across into the business side of music. And fortunately, I was asked to join Polygram Records in Perth. and I became a rep, and I was carrying around vinyl records, which is it's sort of like a 360 here at the moment, because there's people out there buying vinyl now for $75 a copy. It certainly wasn't there. But I was in that very incredible era of the first Dire Straits album, Grease, Saturday Night Fever. All of those albums were coming out through Polygram, so it was an absolutely sensational period of time as far as music was concerned. At the same time, I was still playing in bands at night. It was, I then went from there, and they promoted me to Melbourne, where I looked after 4 Polygram. I looked after getting Polygram bands on the countdown, so my job was to basically to look after Molly in all the right ways, and to make sure that our bands were featured on that program, because at the time it really was the only game in town as far as music television is concerned. If you got your band on a Sunday night on Countdown, on Monday morning your record sales went through the roof. So that was a really, really important part, and it really taught me a lot of discipline about the management of music, and certainly management of artists. Most of all were pretty temperamental. I then was promoted up to Sydney, and I basically began my career of another 20 years, which is in doing A&R, marketing, and running Mercury Records, and just going through the whole thing until Universal took over. I stayed another 12 months. Had some incredible successes with that, and able to tour the world from the record side is concerned. Absolutely, like Vinni, absolutely magnificent era of music. We're entering another one right now, by the way. And then I was approached by the ABC to be the head of music for the ABC, which I did for 5 years, and thoroughly enjoyed that. I must say, as you might have read in the news, the ABC is quite a political animal, particularly for political parties, and therefore my tenure of 5 years was part of the new broom syndrome that happens with the ABC about every 5 years. So, and then moved over to music publishing and shop music publishing, running that. And for the last 8 years, I have been still playing. I'm still a player. I play in the horns. Is that I run my own company, Perfect Pitch Publishing, and I am originally. You would have guessed by East Victoria Park that I'm Perth born, and I was. But I spent 37 years in Sydney. And for family reasons, I've come back to Western Australia, and I think I've come back to an incredibly fertile time musically to come back here. I bought the company back here, and I've just been incredibly impressed with the amount of music and also the music education that is happening here, because really the only education that was around in my era was I did my A and B levels in music, but really that was about it unless you wanted to go to university. So I think what we have now with TAFE, with WAPA, with all of the schools and institutions that have now music, I think it's an incredible time. But not only that, I think, and we'll get into this I'm sure, is that we are now getting into a period where music is now controlled by the artist and controlled by the songwriter, and we're now in a situation where we can take our music to the world without having to rely on somebody, and we'll talk about that a little bit further on. But a magic period. I'm glad to be back. Hi to everybody down here. By the way, there's thousands in the park here. For you online, you can't see them, but there's absolutely thousands here, and we're all having a great time. We won't get them to shout just yet, but thank you. I'll pass this over.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much. What a fascinating story. Beautiful. Good on you, mate. Joe Powell.
Hey guys, yep. So I'll just start with a little story as well. I immigrated to Australia when I was 10 years old. We started out in Melbourne, and we weren't that happy with the weather, so we moved to Perth. And I was very lucky to go to a performing arts school, high school called John Curtin College of the Arts, where I studied music theatre, and so my kind of first musical experiences were singing in choirs, and so I started out singing, which I loved at the time. As I grew up, I was kind of interested in exploring the world and seeing a bit more of Western Australia and not getting stuck in classrooms. So I I left school end of year 10 and did an apprenticeship in refrigeration mechanics, which is not to do with music, but it gave me a really good kind of escape from the boredom I was feeling at school. And I look into the real world of how hard a lot of people have to work to make a living. And it gave me a really good work ethic and drive to become a musician. I decided I really didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. And so I was probably about 15 when I picked up the instrument, bass guitar, and I saw my first live band in Freo at Clancy's Fish Pub. And ever since then, I just decided that I wanted to be a bass player and that I had to do it. And so I saved up and got myself my first bass and just started practicing in my room. And but yeah, so while I was doing that, I was doing a trade, and I didn't really have many musical friends to play with. So WAPA became a really big focus that I wanted to get into WAPA and study there. And luckily, I was accepted, and I started WAPA doing the advanced diploma with Vinni Crea as my lecturer. And I studied at WAPA for 5 years, and I graduated with an honours degree in contemporary music. About the second year of my studies, I was doing a few original bands, but hadn't really been able to make any money out of my music at that point. So I was very lucky to get picked up. I auditioned for a band that Vinni was playing in, and yeah, started that band. We played together for about 6 years, and ever since then, Vinni's been kind of my musical mentor and friend. And so yeah, I've learned a lot through playing with Vinni and through studying. While I was studying, I was doing gigs with Vinni every weekend, and during sometimes 2 or 3 in a week, just different clubs and pubs around Perth, and also doing a lot of original music as well. I've managed to release 4 different EPs so far of original music. My latest project is a band called The Persuasion, and it's kind of instrumental jazz kind of rock music. And we play every Thursday at the Ellington Jazz Club in Perth, and yeah, that's been a wonderful experience. It's awesome to have had great friends to play with for a long time and develop our own kind of style. And probably I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years after I kind of met Vinni and been playing with him that a position opened up at WAPA, and I got the job teaching there, which has been an awesome learning experience for myself, and also a very rewarding experience to see a lot of young artists coming through and doing really well in the industry, and then also for me to be able to pass on the knowledge that I had learned through studying to younger people who needed the help. So that's kind of a basic run through of my career so far, and I'm just really grateful that I've had the chance to be able to play with such a wide variety of different people and learn so much. So I really recommend anyone who's thinking about taking music seriously to go ahead and do just that. It takes a lot of dedication, sacrifice, and hours in the practice room, but the benefits pay off massively. I'm very happy at the moment in my life, and what I'm getting to do, play music for a living, it's wonderful. So yeah, pass it on.
Well done. If you get the chance to check out The Persuasion, absolutely fantastic band, incredible music, incredible musicians, and you should be proud of yourself for doing that. I must add, I've also learned a lot playing with you, Joe, so thanks for that. And now we'll move on to Kate, and we are very proud of you, Kate. So we'd love to claim that you're our student, Kate. So.
Thanks. So I'm a Collie local, and I've grown up in Collie, and I went to school in Collie, and then I moved to Bunbury Catholic College to do the music that was there. When I was graduating, there wasn't much music here in Collie, so I decided the best thing to do, well, my parents thankfully decided the best thing to do was to move me to Bunbury Catholic College, and that's where I really worked out that I wanted to be a musician. I started learning piano when I was 7 years old, and I then moved to guitar and singing when I was 8. By the time I was 11, I was gigging around Collie. I was playing in the nursing homes here where I was honoured the Young Citizen of the Year of Collie, just for the community work that I was doing, and I'm really proud of that. And that's when I realised that I wanted to go to the Academy of Country Music that was in Tamworth, but unfortunately at the time I was too young. It was 18 then, but I always knew that was something I wanted to do. And thankfully when I turned 16, they brought the years down to any age. So I got to go to the Academy of Country Music, the junior and the senior, and that's when WAPA became on my mind at the same time when I was 11. So I started working hard towards getting into WAPA, and thankfully Vinni let me go into WAPA, and that's where I really embraced the songwriting. I'm a country music artist, but at WAPA they teach you so much of embracing every kind of genre, learning about your songwriting skills, and just really, becoming wider, having a wider knowledge of music. So I've gone to Tamworth a couple of times, which is the country music capital. I've gone there 9 years in a row, and it's been such an incredible experience there. I moved there in 2016 to pursue my career in country music, but I hurt my back in the journey, and I was in a wheelchair for a couple of months at Tamworth, and that's when I realised that I better come home to my family, and I was home for a couple of months, and then I decided I'd create my own music school here in Collie and really just focus on something rather than the pain that I was in. And I'm really proud to have over 30 students now, and I know that 2 of them are here and they want to go to WAPA. So hopefully I can pass on my knowledge to them so that they're ready for WAPA when the time comes, and just be able to inspire others, hopefully. So I gig every weekend, or most weekends, and I just really want to be a musician, so I worked hard at becoming one. So that's my journey.
Well, that's great, Kate. Well, you are an inspiration not only to all of those people, but also to us. And thanks for that awesome WAPA plug. That's fantastic. And we can't let it go without mentioning that you've won a number of awards as well. So Kate is actually an award-winning artist, so we are particularly proud of that. But we were hoping that we would discuss some topics that may be of interest to some of you and that may be helpful to some people watching out there. So some advice for people just starting out. We'll have a little bit of an input into that, but I think for me, the first thing that I would advise people is to make sure that they've got some knowledge to be able to communicate with other people, because music is a language, and so although we can all speak the same language, when we perform and play music, then music becomes the language, and it's international, so you could perform with people from anywhere around the world. And if you have got that musical communication, then you can perform. We'll give you an example of that a little bit later on when we do some performing this evening. But with communication, I can remember my first school band that I was mentioning, and I was in the orchestra, I was playing timpani. I'd only just joined and I knew very little about music. And I remember the conductor just telling me not to worry about reading any of the notes, which I couldn't read because I had only just started. And he said to me, learn a couple of parts that you've got to play and watch me. I'll give you the nod, and when I give you the nod, you'll know to play that section. So I learned pretty much straight away that the importance was to have the communication with the conductor and to be aware of what was going on and to make it look like I knew what I was doing. And that was an incredible first lesson. I was 12 or 13 years old. And I think that it's vital that we understand the importance of that communication musically. It's very difficult to have that if you don't have any knowledge, because we need some knowledge so that we're on the same kind of playing field of music. So for me, I would definitely suggest that gaining some of that knowledge to be one of the most important things. You can do that via a local teacher or your local music institution. So I think it's very important. Knowledge is one of the first things. How do you feel about that?
Communication, absolutely. One of the things that I neglected to say was that I've been lecturing for quite a long time. Vinni actually invited me in to offer to give a masterclass in music publishing, but I taught for 6 years as a master lecturer at AIM in Sydney, but they were mostly music industry. They were looking at more on the management side rather than playing side, a lot of those people. But the same thing applies to everyone, is that an artist more than ever before has to know how to communicate not only a face-to-face thing because it's a very personal industry, but also through the social media, through online. It can be a very dark and very dangerous area to get involved in. As long as you control your online presence, it is the most important thing in order to gain a fan base, is to be able to communicate who you are and what you can give to your audience online, you people in that phone there, and what's the benefit? What is the benefit that they should follow me as opposed to somebody else, or as well as somebody else? And it's really important, that communication, that you look at all forms of media, whether it happens to be Instagram, which seems to be now the media of choice. There's Facebook, but it's considered now to be more of old person's pages. But Instagram is certainly the way to go. Twitter is starting to die. But there, certainly, as far as any sort of online media is concerned, the communication, honest communication in that media is so important. But it's exactly the same as the honesty in your performance. Is that that people can see through performance when it's dishonest. Have a look at some of the artists. Some of the just on YouTube, and have a look at them and say, is that real? I'm not going to name artists here, but I look at some of these people and go, I'm not entirely sure what you're in this business for, because it's certainly not the passion of music, but I think it might be the filthy lucre, which is the dollar sign. People can see through it. The people that are successful, I'll give you one example. Ed Sheeran is a classic example of a communicator who absolutely nails it as far as every form of communication that there is. When he came out to Australia, the first thing he did in a PR sense, which is communication, was to sit down at a telephone and ring every community radio station in Australia and do a station ID for them. Hi, I'm Ed Sheeran, I'm at Collie. What's the radio station here? Is there a radio station here? 101.7. Ed Sheeran, here. 101.3. Don't go to 101.7. Don't go to 101.7, whatever you do, it's just white noise. 101.3, this is Ed Sheeran. Hey, I love you, I'm glad you love my music. Keep listening to this station, they're great. He did that with every community station. Now, you might think, that's a bit sort of, why would you worry about that? They don't rate, they don't necessarily sell the records. You know what? This guy's reputation globally has been built on his communication with his fans, so they buy into who he is. And so everyone that's listening to that station goes, wow, he's actually talking about our town. How cool is that? And he does that with everything. And he is a brilliant communicator. Not only does he cut it as a musician because he's honest, and if you saw his tour, you would have seen that he packed out stadiums playing a guitar by himself. Now, that is hard work. That's seriously, that's like standing on stage naked, if you get my drift. So, but he was able to do that because of his honesty in music, and he carries that right through. So communication, absolutely massive. Yeah, that's my bit.
I think in a practical sense, if you're just starting out playing music, it depends what aspect of the music industry you want to be pursuing really, but in a performance sense, I think, and I tell this to all the grown-ups who ask me how to get into the music industry, start playing at open mic nights. It's such a great and safe format to really break into performance, because there's a big difference between playing at home in your room, playing even for your family, and playing on a stage where you're listening to yourself come back through a speaker in front of you. And there's things like communication with the sound guy, dealing with the gear, all the technical side of stuff that you need to really develop that knowledge. And that's a good way to do it, I think. in a performance sense for kids to get into it, it's a great place to start. Not too hard.
I really would think the biggest thing to start out with is just to listen to as much music as you can, and ask your friends what they're listening to, and say, hey, I'm listening to this band, and what band are you listening to, and try and have a wide variety of different music styles that you listen to learn from, because there's a lot that you can gain from, or understand from listening to people and listening to their music. I think music is an extremely expressive way. It's probably the best way to express yourself, I think. And so a lot of music out there is actually really just people like telling you their real stories and their real life issues, and it can help you with your own issues and problems. But yeah, you can understand a lot by listening to music as deeply as you can. Having that one record that you listen to for a month or a year, and you might hear something new the hundredth or the thousandth time you listen to it. So really trying to get inside music and understanding whatever your particular role in that music could be. Maybe you're a guitarist, maybe you're a bass player or a drummer or a singer or piano player, whatever it is. Trying to understand what your role would be if you were in that band, and what you could do to play along with that CD. I mean, that's always a great thing, is just to put your music on and play along with it. Try and find the notes on your instrument. I would say really just practicing as much as possible, and trying to get advice from as many people as you can, because everyone has a different perspective, and you can always learn things from everyone. So I would keep open ears and mind, and try and absorb as much as you can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd also say to jam, if you have other musicians around you, get together, play. You never know what you could learn, as Joe was saying. You can embrace every single genre that you want. If you like a song and someone else likes a song, it might be completely different. But meet up, play different songs. Just try everything you can. You just never know what opportunities are around, and you just gotta grab at them. Someone might hear you playing and they might go, come on my show. How about you be the support act? When I was busking in Tamworth, there were so many times that people would come up and go, man, I love that. Why did you come onto my show? And that's how things start. You got to get out there, play with other people, and just embrace it. Go busking, go performing in the nursing homes, just play. The more you play, the better you get, and that's also a practicing thing as well. Just practice as much as you can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So a combination of knowledge and communication and just actual performance, which we're all discussing, and that's what we do. So it's important that we actually do practice to do that. I think one thing that I'd love to add to that, and that is to be a good people person. If you want to be successful, be a good people person, because people will always choose someone that's easy to get on with and is reliable and consistent, over just a great player or a great performer if they're not so easy to get on with. So, that's a very important part, and you often hear that when you hear interviews and speak to people.
So actually, Vinni, just on that point for a second, because it is really important, is the relationship that you have with every time you meet somebody, and that you start building your team and advancing your career. There seems to be a lot of artists that get to a certain level, and all of a sudden everybody else is, below them. The biggest problem is that it's sort of like a mountain. There's up and there's down, and the thing is that you have to be consistent with that. And the people that are really successful and have long-term careers are the people that treat other people like they want to be treated. And I, unfortunately, have, during my 25 years with Polygram Universal, have dealt with some really, really ugly people, and the only karma that I can get out of that lot is the fact that these careers have ended up in the toilet. Or nobody wants to go and see their gigs anymore. But the people that really are the ones that have the Ed Sheerans, but I got Mark Knopfler, who I did several tours with from Dire Straits, is a man that is just totally into his music. That's all he was about, and it was about, tell me about yourself. So where everybody was going, Mark, tell me, he was more about saying, well, what do you do? Tell me what you do. That's cool. And that personal thing is going to help your career build, because as you add people to your career and you keep treating them as you want it to be treated, your career, that foundation will be invaluable for you.
Fantastic. Did you want to add something to that?
I was just going to say, bang on, basically, your attitude permeates every aspect of your life, including your business, and it's so transparent. People, even if they don't have a bad experience with you straight off the bat, you feel it, and it's funny how it goes.
Yeah, well, we all certainly agree on that one, that's for sure. And these are wonderful people, so it's very easy for me to be here with these guys, so thank you for that. So one of the other questions that one of the other topics was, do I give up my day job? I can remember my dad saying to me, when are you going to get serious and get a real job? And I said, no, I want to be a musician. And he said, well, are you going to play at weddings? And I said, no, I'm playing pubs and dances and tour. And so I don't think he thought I was going to be a serious musician for quite some time. He does think I'm a serious musician now, though, so that's pretty good. So eventually it got through. But that's the interesting question. Do I give up my day job, or when do I give up my day job? So I think that it's absolutely a privilege to be able to be a performer, a musician, a composer, an entertainer. And I feel very privileged, and I'm grateful that I can do that. I've been able to continue to do that up until now, and hopefully into the future. And I think the first thing is that it should be done because you really love it and it's your passion. And when things happen naturally like that, then they happen for the best reasons, and you usually get the right reward for them. Sometimes people, as Clive mentioned before, are, aiming for the dollar or trying to do whatever they can do to desperately get some sort of success. It's horrible to see those situations, but I think that I've often said it's great to have some options. Music's a wonderful thing that you can do full-time, part-time, or however you want. You can fit it into your life and you can make your life successful, because success really is what you make it to be for you in your own life. So some people's success might be touring the world, some people it might be selling lots of records, some people it might be just being able to perform on the weekends or write a song a week, or some people it might be able to do that and have a family like myself. And so, there's various different levels of success, and it really depends on the individual what that is. But the day job one, some of us are very lucky that we can have music and entertainment as our main source of income. And I think it's a wonderful thing to aim for. And in order to be able to do that, you have to be able to do more than just one thing. So if you're just a performer, or you're just a songwriter, or you're just a teacher, it might be difficult. But if perhaps you can teach, and you can play, and you can write, and you can do sessions, and you can read, you can communicate with other musicians, and you can play more than just one style, then you've given yourself a great opportunity to perhaps have the chance to be successful and to have longevity in our industry. So I think the day job question is one of those elusive ones that, the answer is out there somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. But that's my bit of a spiel. How do you feel, Kate?
Yeah, I feel like most of the time work doesn't come to you. You've actually got to go and get it. You have to contact the venues. If you don't have an agent, if you don't have a manager, and you're an independent artist, you have to go and contact them yourself. People aren't going to know who you are without actually going and saying, hi, I'm Kate, I'm an artist, can I play at your venue? You've got to actually, if you want to make it a day job, you have to put the hours in. It's not just I do a 3-hour gig on the weekend. That's just not being a musician. To make it a full-time job, there's so much behind the scenes work. There's social media, there's booking tours, there's contacting venues, there's contacting bands. There's so much behind the scenes that you need to know about before you make this a full-time thing. You can't just be like, I'm just going to quit my job tomorrow and see how this goes. As much as easy as it would be to do that, you have to find the work, and that's my input. You're just going to, find the work.
there's an interesting thing, the correlation to the general workforce outside of music, which is you serve your apprenticeship. And that could be study, and it could be playing part-time and studying, but the apprenticeship is about building those skills, as Vinny was saying, building the skill base to a point where you, what they call a tipping point. And the tipping point is where you've reached an audience level where the demand, you're searching, and the demand outreaches that. And the tipping point is when that goes over and people then want to book you and people want to work with you. That does take a long time, and that's the apprenticeship in music. As far as like Vinny said, my father, it took 25 years for my father to say, I think you might have a career. Because the only fight I ever had with my father, in fact, was about music. And because he didn't understand, he came from an era which was about you had a job and you stayed there for life. And that wasn't my era. And it was really hard for him to understand. You needed to have a foundation. I still think the foundation is really important. First of all, in the music industry, from education, you get an understanding of where music comes from, how it's constructed. It gives you another, as Vin said, you know, as far as reading, if you're going to be doing reading, great, that's another string to your bow. And the more things that you can add to your curriculum as far as a musician, the better chance you have of actually broad basing yourself. I'll give you a very quick story. I represent 25,000 copyrights with my publishing company, both internationally and locally, nationally as well as Western Australia. One of the things that I really make sure that my writers understand is that they don't write just the genre that they play, that they're able to write in any genre at all. And that's the longevity of a songwriter, is to be able to write across genres. I have one writer called Steve Lucas in a punk band called X. And this is a very quick story, but this band was very big in the 80s and 90s as far as punk. A very unrelenting band, you know, and very difficult to listen to without your ears bleeding. What I did is I also looked after the synchronization and licensing into a television program called Saddle Club. And Saddle Club was a television series about girls, horses, positive affirmation, and all things good, and the things that you weren't allowed to involve were sex, romance, boys, basically. Well, there's a little bit of boys, but basically it was all about friendship and the friendship between girls. I said to Steve Lucas and all my writers, I said, I'd like you to write a song for Saddle Club. And of course, I won't actually go into what he said to me because it's not printable. But I said, you know what, you're a songwriter. And a songwriter should not have barriers, and it should not have any borders whatsoever. So I want you to write something. Well, the long story short is, he actually wrote a song and got into Saddle Club. He's still making money because there's pipeline income that comes in. It's in 43 countries around the world. It's still replayed everywhere because it's such a fantastic series for just positive affirmation. And he still gets it, but the one thing he always insists on, he said, don't tell anybody. And I said, Steve, that's the beauty of publishing. No one knows who you are. So you can make a lot of money and not be known at all, so you're safe. Yeah, not anymore. Thank you for that. Steve, g'day Steve.
I think you're right in that respect. Diversity is key, absolutely. It's nice to, and each of those different areas or aspects of music, they feed each other, your overall knowledge and success in music as a whole. But in terms of the tipping point as to when do you actually take the plunge, I think it's more a question of when do you start treating music as a full-time job? Because if you don't treat it as a full-time job, like you would work in a supermarket, etc., etc., if you're not putting 30, 40 hours a week, in quality hours a week into music, then you can't really expect to continue to make a full-time career out of it, as is anything. You know? So I think it needs to be taken seriously in that respect. But then again, the question is, when is that point? Like, how do you know that? And for me, it was when I couldn't take working for someone else anymore. I couldn't bear spending or wasting 30, 40 hours a week doing something that wasn't contributing to the thing that I love, my passion and my purpose. And really, there's always going to be a crossover period. And for me, that was making the decision to do music full time. I always wanted to, but obviously that can be in the background for a long, long time, sometimes many, many, many years, and you can end up still working your job and wanting to be a muso, as many of my mates still do. But basically, you have to have the gear and you have to make a plan, I did, as to how you're going to basically get an income, because end of the day, we live in a monetary society. So for me, I identified how I could make some money and still do what I love, which is making music, and especially performing and writing, and especially performing and writing original music. So I know that in the city there's a huge covers scene, but around the rest of the country, I've made a very good living just playing my original music and even doing session work, which is a really positive and rewarding thing for me. But you have to. I knew that I needed gear. I needed a PA. You can't really play anywhere. I think that you're going to make a full-time career in music as a performing artist and not have your own PA system. You need to be able to set up anywhere and put on a gig, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to make music, right? And so, get a PA system. That's a bit of money. Look around the Gumtree. Do that first for sure. But especially as you're starting out, you know. But I had to stockpile equipment, you know, and that meant I had to work a lot. I had to work really hard doing the thing that I didn't want to do. But that's okay, because the fire, you get the fire in your belly when you know it's going to be the last time that you do it, you know. And that's when you really know that you're going to succeed at it, is when there's no option for failure, and you know that the only thing you're going to do is what you want to do, and so you put all the time into it. You work your job, and then you go off to rehearsals and come home at 3 in the morning, get up at 5 and go to work. You do that because you're crazy about what you want to be doing, and then you become successful at it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. The sacrifices that have to be made if you're serious about making a living out of it. For me, the decision was, I made the decision that I was going to be a professional muso before I even knew any scales or knew what the notes on my instrument were. So it's like it took a while for my life to catch up with my grandeur idea of what I was going to be. I quit my day job when I quit my Frigi job, which is, just before I started Whopper, and I wasn't making a living out of music at that point. I was depending on Centrelink and support from people, friends, family, and the wonderful thing is that we live in a very lucky place, Western Australia. We're lucky that we can get that support to study music and do the thing that we love. There's a lot of places in the world that you just don't get that opportunity because of economic issues and things like that. So we have to be grateful for that and take advantage of it as much as we can. We get funding from the government for our courses and that our studying, and so that really helped me to build my financial situation. Getting Centrelink and also help from the government with my funding for my courses. And then it was a period of maybe 5 years of me just scraping by, really, making just enough to feed myself and pay the rent. And then after that kind of period, it started to build from there, and now I make a good living out of music, and I'm very grateful for it, but it didn't come easily. But I guess in terms of the decision, I made the decision way before I was actually able to do that. So I think it's a mindset as well.
Yeah, well done. Well, there's some interesting versions there, which is really fantastic. I think I certainly have some friends, I'm sure Clive could tell us some stories along similar lines, that have been very successful. However, that success may have only lasted a few years. So, as I said before, number one, success is how you measure it, what it means to you in your life. Number two, if you're going to give it your day job up, then how will you continue to be able to perform and be a musician or an entertainer without having a day job? And I think one of the important things is writing songs. That's very important, because if you have a couple of songs that are hits or get on compilation albums, some of the friends that I've told you about and that Clive could tell you about, they may have only been successful for a couple of years, so maybe they were international stars and now they're just busking in the markets and things. But some of those songs that they wrote in those few years, they're still getting royalties and a big fat check every year. And I know a good friend of mine that wrote one Australian anthem, Run to Paradise. I'm sure most of you know that. I remember him saying to me once, see this platinum card? That comes from that one song. So, you know, writing songs and getting it out there and writing songs for other people is a really important thing, and I think that's what we really try to encourage. A lot of people can write songs for others, do very well, and still have their day job as well. So I think there's lots of versions, but you know, that whole thing of success and ultimate success may only last for a couple of years if it's the sort of performing and being a star. And eventually, your hair goes grey, it might not be the sort of coolest thing. So in order to be able to continue on, you know, when that does happen, I think you do have to have those facets of your music and your education and those sorts of things. Am I right there?
You know, absolutely. Look, a real case in point, and for the youth today, it may not necessarily resonate as much, but as an illustration about songwriting and the importance of it and the longevity of it, an industry leader once told me that the reason why he never sold his publishing company was because it's the superannuation of the writer, and because it's the gift that keeps on giving. And a classic example of that is that there are 3,000 commercial released versions of the song Yesterday by Lennon and McCartney. Besides the fact that actually Lennon didn't write the song, it was just an agreement between the two of them. As a matter of fact, the Beatles didn't even play on the track, but that's beside the point. I just thought I'd throw that in. So Yesterday has 3,000 commercial versions. 2 people wrote that song. 2 people, they're the only people that get paid the publishing royalties for that song. Every 3,000 versions, 2 people get paid for the writing of that song. To me, that's the greatest illustration of how important songwriting is, how important, and the longevity of that. So many artists have said to me, you know, I'm so sick of touring, I just don't want to do it anymore. But they actually have a catalogue of songs that are working for them. And it's either been put onto compilations, or it's put into film, television and advertising, or somebody else has picked it up and done a cover version of it, or it's picked up in Germany and done in German or French or whatever it happens to be. The residual royalties, those royalties come back to those writers who originally wrote it, so they can sit in there. Probably the most successful songwriter in the world is a guy called Max Martin, who no one knows, but he has written in over 4 decades. He has written hits over 4 decades, and he's worth $250 million. This is an anomaly, by the way, but $250 million, this guy, and he can walk down the shop and buy a litre of milk and not be recognised. All the people that have performed his songs can't do that. So I think it's a magnificent position to be in as a songwriter, to be able to go, you know what, I can have my anonymity, I can do whatever I want, I can just write songs. Now, I bet everyone here, thousands that are here, and also online, I bet that they have a pad where they write down lyrics. And they'll go, oh, I like that idea, I'll write that down. And sometimes you flesh it out, sometimes you just leave it and maybe come back to it. But ultimately, every time you have a thought, or you go past a street, or you go past and you see somebody doing something, write it down. Because it could become a song, and then somebody could perform it, and then somebody will make money out of it, and guess what? You're the writer, you're the one that makes the money out of it. And it's just like writing poetry, it's just like writing an essay at school. all it is just writing words. That's it. And remember, music is a second language. And in our cases, it's probably a first language, in fact. But it's an important one. So everyone write stuff down. When it comes into your head, write it down. Carry it, put it into your phone. Write stuff down, because you never know where that magic little chorus is going to come from, or that little piece, run to paradise. Oh, gee, like all of those things, are just little hooks. And the hooks are things that grab you as a listener and you go, oh, I love that song, I want to sing it again. Really important.
Yeah, as a songwriter, I always carry a hook book with me, and if you ever get any ideas, always write them down, because when you get home you'll be like, oh, what was that idea again? Always carry a hook book. I remember I was writing a song and I thought it was going to be a hit, and I wrote about a verse, chorus, verse, and I went back to what I was writing and I thought, oh, how does the verse go again? And I said, oh, it's okay, I'll record it, because I always record. You always press the record button when you're songwriting. And I had forgotten to press record. And that's okay, because it must have been a good song if I couldn't remember how it went. But always carry a hook book with you, because you just never know when someone might say something and you go, oh, that's such a good line for a song. So always carry a hook book, even if it's a small thing you can fit in your bag. You just never know when an idea might come and you don't want to forget it.
Yeah, that's great advice. In actual fact, I've heard lots of stories, and I know even myself, I have these ideas in the middle of the night, so you're asleep and you get this incredible idea. And most of us, or a lot of us, don't actually act on that, but some of us do. And we do get our little recorder or our phone or our hook book, and we do document it in one way or another. It's a really great thing to do, so great advice. Actually, one of the questions and the topics that I did want to talk about, or I was asked about actually, was how the opportunities for females in the industry. So Kate, it's perfect to ask you about how do you feel the opportunities are for females?
Well, I think a lot has changed in the last couple of years that I've been in the industry. When I was about 11, it was so hard to be a female artist, I found. It was always like, what am I going to wear? It wasn't about the music for me in that time of my life, but I feel now that there's such a strong female influence. There's so many amazing female artists that are taking the world by storm, like Taylor Swift. She has such an influence on female artists, on male artists, and it might be hard as a female artist because it's such a male-dominant, as you can tell, male-dominant industry. But you just got to keep at it. You can't go, oh, what am I going to wear? Yeah, it might have taken me 2 hours to get ready today. How long did it take you guys? It might have taken 2 hours just to look okay.
3 hours, 2 hours.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
On Monday.
But it's always important. It's about the music. It's always about the music, and I think a lot of people forget about that. And you can't make a living off of music if you're not a good musician. You have to be good at what you do, and even though it's hard for females just because of the world that we live in, I think it's a huge improvement to what it used to be. But I think you just got to embrace every opportunity that does come your way, and just be wary of who approaches you and says, I can make you big, and then they're not going to. They just want to make money in their pocket, or they want to look at you as an object, not as a musician. You just have to make sure you have the right team around you, and you'll know that because you might go through a couple of people. Lucky for me, when I was at WAPA, I didn't really know who I was as an artist, but there were so many incredible lecturers, Vinni included, that really helped you get along, and he was very equal. It's not males are better, it's not females are better. If you put the work in, you're going to be a better musician, and again, it's just about the music.
Oh, well said. I certainly know that at WAPA, that in the course that we have, I would say it's at least 70% female. So I think it's getting better, and certainly the females are feeling like they can get out there and there's more opportunity for them.
Yeah, I think in my company, the women that are writing, to me, it's funny. They're more writing from the heart. They're actually writing an emotion, and some of that writing is quite exceptional, and that resonates really well to their audience. More the women and young ladies tend to be singer-songwriters, as opposed to bands, playing in bands where you have the guys that are playing in bands or doing things. But I think having a good mix across it, because particularly from a publishing point of view, when I'm pitching things for film, television or advertising, it's gender neutral. It's like, I want the best song, and very rarely, unless it happens to be for a product that happens to be tailored towards a female audience, generally what I want is the song that fits. Give me something that lyrically fits, and I don't care who sings it or whatever. So that's, to me, is really important, that I have as a publisher to be able to give that option to my clients. So I don't care where a song's coming from. I just like great songs. So the more you write, the better you get, the better opportunities. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think music is one of the few art forms that really crosses boundaries in terms of cultures, gender, age, beliefs. You can play music with anyone of different viewpoints, situations, and experiences. So that's one of the wonderful things. And studying a lot, I was really amazed to see a lot of really strong female musicians out there that are killing it and are really on top of their game in terms of musical ability. So my advice would be to not play into that and that kind of gender or race or culture, age differences. I think there are obviously problems that we all face coming from different situations and different experiences that we're all going to have. But don't let that define you. Let your music speak for itself, and just be strong in your own artistry.
There's actually something that you should be aware of, which is, if you listen to commercial radio, you are listening to the tip of the iceberg of music. It's not the music industry. It's programming in order to sell advertising, and it's basically programmed on surveying from overseas hits. It's such a small part of what music is all about. So and radio will go and wax and wane between male artists, and you'll hear it. There'll be the periods where there'll be all female artists, or there'll be all male artists. And if you go online to YouTube or any of the Facebook, any of those things, you're going to hear an incredible amount. Spotify is a great one for finding music, or Apple Music, great way to find music. It's so diverse and it's gender neutral. You just, whatever you want to listen to. So commercial radio really gives a distorted picture of really what the trends are. So to me, there are no trends in music, because there is an audience for every type of music. So, and I think that's the beauty of you know what, no, I don't think I'd better write country music because, it's such a small genre. I'd be better off going for pop music. Oh no, well, all of a sudden, the honesty is not there, and the audience will see through it. So you going, I love country music, you can see you love country music, you perform country music with honesty, and that works, and the audience accept it. So don't go down because commercial radio play pop music, you're going to be a pop singer. Sing what you have as a passion, what you really love, and what really draws you, and what's the thing that gets you right here. Because music is an emotion. It's part of that. It creates emotion. You ever watched a movie without music in it? It's a silent movie without music, and it doesn't do anything for you. And as soon as they put that extra dimension into it, which is the music, all of a sudden you either start crying, you start laughing, you get emotional, you feel involved in that, and that's the passion of music. That's why we're here, because it's just an incredible thing that is inside you. And once you get it inside, I'm sorry to say, you'll never get rid of it.
Did you want to add anything to that, Dan? Yes, we are, certainly. I think I'll just add that with music, we would never really, I don't think any one of us or anyone that I know would consider whether you're male or female. For us, it's just the language and whatever it is that we're doing, the genre we're doing, or what we might need as far as, expertise or performance skills or whatever. So I can't think of a situation really where we would say, it has to be a male or a female. So as far as I'm aware, today it's pretty good, it's pretty equal. And if anything, I think that there's a lot more fantastic female artists out there right now than males, so it's probably going the other way. But we have been asked to wind up, and I think we've only got a minute or two left. So first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. And yes, that's right, we did want to ask you guys if you had any questions that you'd like to put to the panel.
I'm curious, particularly with the slightly older members on the panel there, do you believe in the idea of a golden age of rock and roll stardom? There'll never be another Freddie Mercury, or never be another Jimi Hendrix, but they kind of transcended music to the point of becoming icons of the time, not only their time, but of now. And I'm curious what you guys think in terms of the stars of today, like Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift. When they're gone, do you think they'll be the same? They'll have the same power of iconography that those stars have?
Well, I think it's apples and oranges, to be perfectly honest. What you had was an era that had no other interfering or disruptive technology that came in at all. You didn't have the internet. You had live music, and you had vinyl or CDs, and you had so that was it. There was nothing else competing in that space. What we have right now, and that was, there's a thing that happened about 20 years ago, which was access became more important than ownership. So it's about the audience now wants access to everything they can, and it's a smorgasbord of music. We no longer live in a generation where ownership is the key. We don't collect music anymore. We consume it via accessing it and all sort of things. So are we going to have an era like that? No, but we're going to have a different looking era. And so what we've got is now more choice, because we control what we listen to. We're not controlled by record companies that are saying we're going to release this record, and we're going to be controlled by record, out there. You just got to find them. So you're not going to have the same in your face as Freddie Mercury now, because the media is way too wide for that sort of thing spread. But you can find your own Freddie Mercurys. If you go on Spotify, you'll say, if you like Freddie Mercury, you'll probably like this.
Yeah. I guess just that thing of one single figure continuing through history to be, he is the icon of that. He's the original Freddie Mercury.
I think the landscape has changed so radically that we now have a very disposable attitude towards music. We like it, and then we move on. We just have a different headspace now.
And the difference is, from that time, everyone listened to that artist. There were less artists because it was harder to get the music out there, whereas now with the internet, I can put a song on Spotify and anyone in the world can listen to it. So I think that's really empowering for artists, but like you said, it's changed the landscape, because there's a lot more artists out there. And so for one single artist to go down as such a legend like Freddie Mercury, I think it's a lot harder to permeate the noise. Not a bad thing at all, because there's so many different people out there who enjoy different genres of music, so it's great to have that diversity. But it definitely means that you still have your Ed Sheerans, and you still have your Taylor Swifts, etc., etc. And they may well go down in history with that age demographic.
Yeah, and by the way, there's more touring now than there has ever been. Live music is incredible as far as touring is concerned, because it's affordable, bigger audiences, and people are now discovering artists that can now tour because of the new landscape of of streaming, they can now tour and they go, I've never even heard of these people. What happened? You go, hold on. Yeah, actually they've sold out every venue they're in. Really? Well, that's not possible. So different era. It's all still about great music though.
And as an artist, you can literally look at a map of the world and it shows you where people are listening to your music, which is great because obviously you go, same with your radio as well. For those of you who aren't on it, AMRAP Air It, it's a free community radio service for independent musicians. All you do, submit your music and they'll play it around the country. They submit a report as well, not a map like Spotify or Apple Music do, but they give you also a spreadsheet of all the community radio stations around the country who play your music. So as a booking agent, you would literally just look at all that information and go, sweet, there's my audience, I'll go play to them. Makes it very easy in this day and age, I think, to access your listeners and connect with them and continue to nurture that relationship.
Yeah, I think it changes each decade. You know, if you go back and look at Elvis, there was, you know, Elvis and a few others similar to him. And then the next decade, you know, you had the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Animals and a few, you know, it was more, it increased from, you know, 10 huge stars to maybe 20 or 30, and then, you know, it multiplies by 10 each decade sort of thing. So nowadays, people can be internationally known and they have never left their bedroom in, you know, downtown Collie. So the option of being, the opportunity of being successful is there. Perhaps only the biggest stars get, you know, recognisable, have that eternal, you know, flame being lit for them. But I think we should all strive to do well and just do what's natural and be honest about it, and things will come your way anyway. You know? And for some of us, we're not that well known and we're still successful in our own right by being able to perform and live our lives. So, you know, I think, as I said earlier on, I think it's one of those things that can be measured individually for each person. So.
You want to be your own artist. You don't want to be anyone else. You know, be who you are. You don't want to, you know, there's so many molds these days of, oh, I'm a country singer, I need to be the next Taylor Swift. I don't want to be the next Taylor Swift. I want to be the next Hindle. You know, you just got to be your own artist.
And no one can do that better than you.
Exactly.
You have your own unique thing to give, basically. There's no point in filling the shoes of someone else because that's what they're doing.
True.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 12 notes and that everyone's played them, so it really comes down to how you and what you can express through those 12 notes and what story you have to tell, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. That's exactly right. I actually remember somebody just recently saying, yes, that there's 12 notes, but you get paid on 2 and 4, so that's a really good thing to remember. But we certainly look forward to seeing both of you guys performing. I shouldn't really say you guys, should I? That's not right, but both of you performing tonight, and we're going to have the privilege of doing some playing with you tonight too, so thank you very much for that. And I think that's pretty much most of what we were hoping to cover. Is there any other questions from anybody?
Obviously, you see a lot of songs written in that. Is there something particular that you look for, something that pops out? Like, how do you know that is a really good song compared to all the others?
How do you know a hit? How do you pick a hit?
I think hits are created. I think hits are created by people. Songs are created by the individual, and I think it's through experience. When I hear something and I know, my business is about lyrics and melody, and basically strip down, forget about the production, forget about everything that's done in the background. It's about if it can stand up as lyrics and melody, and I know that it has all the elements that just get me, with some lyrics that connect with me and a melody that connects with me. That's a good song. The hit part is not up to me.
I think if you're trying to write that one hit song, that could be dangerous. If you instead just write a lot of songs, the hit will be in amongst them and will naturally come out on its own. So, you know, I would encourage anybody to just continue to write. You soon know, people go, oh, I really like that one, or they sing along with it, or, you know, people will make comments on it. So, you know, it's not really rocket science, believe it or not, but a lot of people do try to make you know, you have that one hit, and I think sometimes that can be the dangerous point. Yeah.
I remember that I was at a songwriting retreat, is what it's called, and we were told, you know, you could write 20 songs, but only one of them might be good. You know, you've got to just write down everything. Just write. If you want to be a songwriter, I had a New Year's resolution to write a song every week, because it expands your knowledge, it forces you to write in a deadline, you know, it just gives you this songwriting knowledge that you probably wouldn't have if you weren't forcing yourself to write. And every week I write a new song. Some of them might be terrible, but I'm still trying, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So even if it isn't a hit, you know, it's still something from your heart that you should be proud of.
Well said. Well, I think on that note, we're going to finish up. Is that right?
Well, thank you all for coming here today and sharing your knowledge and wisdom on behalf of Operation Next Gen. And I thank you to the Collie Community Bank and Better Electrical for sponsoring us this nice little lounge setting. So we're going to have a short intermission, and then we're going to have an open mic session with some of Kate's students. And the bar is now open. They're serving deliciously good craft beer and some other stuff. So go check that out. And we have Kate and Dan and Luke on from 6 o'clock. So for everybody, so come on down, share it on Facebook, Operation Next Gen, future conversations. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.